Hello, welcome back to my channel. And I'm Ben. I've got another pebble for your shoe today, and it's a pebble from a vineyard. But before we get started, I would like to ask if you could just like and subscribe. That will help me as a content producer, content creator. Um, and I'm gonna start this video just kind of sharing what God's been doing in my life personally over this last year. And I think it might have some value for you too. It had some personal value for me. And I think it might, you might find some gems in it as well. Um, I've been like, for the last year, I wanted to kind of really see God just reveal himself to me. Not like, like it is in that Bible story where they say, "Show us your glory." So Moses is asking for God to show him his glory. I'm not like Charlton Heston. I'm not melodramatic. I'm not a drama queen. Um, it was more something like, God, I want you to speak to me. I want to really know the character of God, the Father heart of God, not just Yeshua, not just Jesus, like we read in the New Testament. I think a lot more people can relate to him more because he was human, but I wanted to really know God. And I asked him that, and guess what happened? I got a lot of silence. I got a lot of nothing for a while. And I asked him several times through the year, and in my heart, I felt like if I wanted to know God, I was just going to read his word more. And that's what I started doing. I started not just like reading through it to get through it, and it has, when, a lot of times you'll read through the Bible and you'll forget what you even read. You have to go back and reread it. Like your comprehension isn't quite as good. And, after like several times just reading through Genesis, I started to really get a heart for each of the characters. I started to get a heart for Adam, a heart for Cain, a heart for Noah, I got a heart to really understood Noah and like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. I even got a heart that felt, I felt heartfelt feelings for even Esau and Ishmael and, and Pharaoh through all these stories. So today I'm going to kind of share the story of what I learned from the life of Noah. I think a lot of people don't really get to walk in his shoes and really understand his heart and what he was going through. So I'm going to kind of paint a picture for you today, illustrate that, and see if you guys get any hidden gems in his story. Um, So let me paint that picture. Um, there was 40 days and 40 nights of rain. Before Noah had built his ark and the rains came down and the great flood came all over the world, some rabbis and teachers teach that there was no rain that existed before that. That in Noah's time, they had this mist that covered the earth and it kept the ground moisturized, I guess, kept irrigating it naturally, and there was a thick membrane of clouds in the air where cosmic rays could get diffracted and deflected, and just the whole atmosphere was different, and so they were protected, and there was constant moisture, so they didn't really have need for rain, and it wasn't until God decided to judge the world with rain that rain came. So Noah, his story is he was building this ark for like 100 years. It says in the Bible. So if you can imagine, put yourself in his shoes. He's not by an ocean. He's not by a lake. He's building this ark in the middle of dry land for 100 years, getting ridiculed, getting bullied, getting made fun of. His reputation is going to garbage. His family's probably questioning him. He's going down in the social status. So he's losing a lot of, I guess, his pride. He's being humbled through this whole process. And it's like, you have to ask yourself, how would I do of 100 years of being ridiculed? And, but, it doesn't show that Noah flinched even for a moment. He just It doesn't say that in the Bible, or in the scriptures. It just says that he did everything God asked him to do. He was faithful, and that's what there's a term in Hebrew for that. It's called a tzaddik, right? In Hebrew, a tzaddik is someone who gives to charity. He does what God tells him to do in his heart, and he gives to people. And so that's kind of the same thing as Noah, but in a different way. It's a tzaddik that he did everything God asked him to do. It's not like Noah gave charity to people. I mean, he kind of did to all the animals and to his family that was saved, but it's not charity like giving to the homeless, feeding the widows, and taking care of the orphans. It's more that the tzaddik that he falls under, that title, is just that he did everything God asked of him. In spite of being ridiculed and bullied and made fun of, he did everything God asked him. That's what the Bible says. Um, so what I'm trying to illustrate here is that he was obedient to everything God asked him. Um, and then we go into the story. His whole family goes in the ark. All the animals are in the ark. God seals the ark, closes them in. The rains come down. And everybody dies and everything dies except for Noah and his family. And probably like the sea monsters and the things in the sea didn't die because they live in the water. But everything that was like mammals and humans and, well, humans are mammals, but you know what I mean. Everything else died. And so I don't know if you ever thought about it, but you know how creepy it would be to to be in complete darkness. It's not like the ark had all these windows. The ark only had one window, and it was at the very top of the ark. So it was kind of looking up. You couldn't really, if you looked out the ark, you really wouldn't see much of anything. It was only like an arm's length. It says it's like a cubit or something. It was like a cubit from the top, and it's like a like 12 by 12 window, kind of something like that. Um, and if you were looking out, even if it was daylight, all you would see is rain for 40 days. And even after the rain, all you would see is like just the top of the ark. You would see the sky, you would see the luminaries, all the stars. You would see the sun during the day, but you really wouldn't see like even the water. You would just see up. So you're always wondering what's going on in the world around me. You're having to trust in God. And even God, it doesn't say that he spoke to Moses in that time. It was quiet. It just says that it rained 40 days, 40 nights. They were on the ark for a total of 150 days, not hearing from God, sitting in darkness, sitting with all the animals and all their feces and all their urine and all those nasty smells. And it's complete darkness. And you're even wondering if God, like, I don't know. I would think Noah might have even wondered if God was even out there. You've just seen the destruction of the entire world. You were probably horrified at the thought that, constantly haunting you, that there were people screaming and yelling and I couldn't help them. They were pounding on the side of the ark. I couldn't help them. All these animals are crying for help. I couldn't help them. Put yourself in those shoes. And then you're asking for God and he's silent. And then not even that. You hear all the people dying, and then all you hear is silence after they're all dead. Maybe you hear the waves splash against the ark, but that's about it. You're not you're in complete darkness inside the ark, and you're in complete silence. It's just you and your family and the animals, and you don't know what's going on outside. So that's pretty traumatic situation. I don't think a lot of people have really put themselves in Noah's shoes to think about that. And so if we fast forward to the story, they end up on Mount Ararat. This is after the dove brings back the olive branch. God opens their door and they all get out. And Mount Ararat is this big mountain, which is in modern day Turkey, and it's full of like volcanic ash and volcanic stones and pretty hard rocks. And that's where Noah ends up going out and planting a vineyard. And you got to wonder, why a vineyard? Of all things, why is he planting a vineyard, right? And then you think about all the trauma he's been in, and I'm sure when he leaves the ark, gets back on the land, it's still pretty challenging because you're on the side of a mountain. It's steep. And so you're dealing with all these mental issues. Like if you're awake, you're thinking about what if? What if I could have saved this person? What if I could have saved this? If I could have done something more? And then you're asleep, you're having these nightmares of what it was like on the ark and all these people who died and all this guilt. I'm sure he felt all that. And it's not like they had PTSD centers where you can go and talk about things and get it out and vent. They didn't have that back then. They didn't have psychiatrists. They didn't have psychologists. They didn't have meds to balance out your depression. It was just Noah, excuse me, and uh, and a vineyard. That's why he planted a vineyard. I don't know if you know the verse in Proverbs. I think it's 31:6-7, where it says, "Give strong liquor to who is perishing, and wine to the deeply depressed. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and cease to remember his troubles." When I read that verse now, thinking about Noah, it makes me question, who was Solomon possibly thinking about when he wrote this proverb? Could it may have been Noah? Maybe he heard the story of Noah as a kid and he remembered it and thought of writing this proverb because that's what Noah needed to turn to. And there is wisdom in that. I don't know. Maybe. Was Noah, um, I just can't stop help thinking about all of Noah's family. He probably had aunts and uncles. He had neighbors and brothers and sisters and friends that all died in the flood. And how many of you guys have had loved ones that have passed on? And you think about them, right? And he lost all of them in one day. One, can you imagine losing someone and then you have to lose someone else like within the same year? That's pretty traumatic. It's a lot to get over. Sometimes it takes more than a year for people to get over a loss. And then you got Noah who lost everyone. He lost the world. And yeah, of course he needed strong drink. That's all he had. Next time you think about Noah, show some empathy. Think about what he went through, you know? Um, before, there's a statement that someone made. I don't know who it is. I looked it up. I couldn't find out who said it. But it says, before passing judgment on someone, try walking a mile in their shoes. And I think that statement might have been taken from the Noah story. And let me explain. Right? So it's like you got the story of how he ends up building this vineyard or planting a vineyard and getting drunk. And then he's got his three sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And it says that Ham stumbled upon his father, saw his nakedness, and then he pointed out his father's nakedness to his two brothers, Shem and Japheth. But Shem and Japheth were more empathetic towards their dad. And instead of looking upon their dad's shame, they turned around, they grabbed a blanket or some kind of covering. I don't know if it actually said a blanket, but they grabbed a covering and they walked backwards and covered their dad. They covered his shame. Now, when you think about it, I don't know who's been to a vineyard, but a lot of the vineyards I've been to are not soil. It's really more rocks. And under the rocks, you'll have like several feet of rocks actually before you actually get to like what clay, right? You'll have like limestone or gravel or volcanic rock in a lot of vineyards, which was the case with Ararat. I think Ararat, I looked it up. Ararat was the type of soil was mostly volcanic type of rock. It was I forget the name of the rocks, but it's mostly volcanic rocks. And underneath the rocks, you have clay. That's where the clay is there for water retention. And so you've got all these feet of rocks, which are the surface and the subsurface. And that's there for water removal, right? Because you don't want a lot of water. You'll get mold, you'll get mildew, you'll get root rot. And so the roots of the vines have to struggle, right? And they have to go through all these layers of rock and limestone in order to get to where the clay bed is. And in doing that, they're pulling from the soil. They're pulling from the rocks. They're getting nutrients and minerals. And what that does is it actually makes the wine better. The vines have to struggle to make better wine. And they even say that, like what makes wine great is really tough vintages, years where it's dry. And then the vines have to really pull from the soil, and that's where you get all this nuance and you get all this structure and you get tannin and you get ageability for the wine because it's built character. It's gotten stronger and it's really pulled from its environment, right? Before it gets to the clay bed. And there's a lesson to learn about that. With wine. Like it's like you have to wonder, why is wine mentioned so much in the Bible? Why are vines mentioned so much in the Bible? It's because they're drawing a comparison. They're painting an illustration to remember they were teaching to a lot of farmers. When Jesus would teach, or these different authors of the Bible would teach, they're teaching because they're a lot of their audience are farmers. They know the land. They know why vines have to struggle in order to build good wine. And they know that the best vintages are on some of the driest years. That's what makes great wine. And that's what makes great people. Noah, he had a lot of struggles, probably the most struggles of any man who's walked on the earth. And what does the Bible call him? There's only two people that Moses, in his 5 books, will call the word Zadok. And Zadok means, again, righteous. And righteous means that you do everything God tells you or you're charitable, right? And the only two people they call that are named that, are Noah and Melchizedek. The king, Melchi, and is Zedek, which means righteous, the righteous king. And so, yeah, when you think about that, they don't call Abraham a Zadok. He didn't call Isaac a Zadok. He didn't call Jacob or Joseph a Zadok. He didn't call Adam a Zadok. He didn't call himself a Zadok. Moses never refers to himself as a Zadok. He says he's humble, the most humble man, but he doesn't say that he's a righteous man. And so you have to wonder, of all these guys, they're all pretty great guys. But Noah's the only one who's called a Zadok other than Melchizedek. And then it makes me question, man, how do I stand? Because I'm definitely not a Zadok. I'm not called humble. I'm just an average person. And compared to Noah, I'm like, oh my gosh, he is one of two people who's a Zadok. Who am I to ever even question his folly? I am not even close to being called a Zadok. And yeah, it makes me think twice before I'd ever question the mistake that Noah made. He had good reason to drink. According to Solomon, the wisest man on the planet, he needed to forget his suffering. And yeah, there was no help for him back then. And then you think about the two sons, and they really showed empathy. They had to make special effort. They really had to try to find his footsteps in order to walk backwards. If you're walking backwards, you have to walk in order not to see where the person is that's naked. You need to just be looking down at the steps and literally put your feet in their steps, walk a mile in their shoes. I think that's what they're talking about. You have to look down, walk backwards. You have to pay attention and walk in their steps. And it would be pretty difficult to walk in lava rock on Mount Ararat, which is on a slope, which is challenging enough. Walking backwards on a slope, a pretty high, steep slope, from what I read on Google, and it's all lava rock. And they didn't have like Nike Jumpmans to walk in. They didn't have really good tennis shoes to walk in or hiking boots. They were probably just in sandals, walking backwards in lava rocks where you probably can't even see footprints. It's probably really challenging to see where the rocks were depressed, from where Noah stepped, so that they don't see their naked dad. They're walking backwards. That takes an extra effort to do that. And there's a lesson to be told there, a hidden lesson that in order to be empathetic with someone, you really have to take some special steps. It's not an easy thing. So yeah, that's kind of the lesson I've got from this. Let me see if I'm forgetting anything. Let me check my notes. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just, I guess next time you think about Noah, my challenge is to you is, or not just Noah, anytime God gives you someone to kind of, I would say, show empathy towards, take an extra step, take a deeper look, you know, think about how can I not shame someone? How can I walk in their shoes and understand what they've gone through, while trying to guard their dignity, not to shame them. Um, I don't know if I've told this story previously or not, but there was a rabbi I learned from. His wife had had an opportunity to help a homeless person, and she wanted to like buy them dinner, sit with them, talk to them, get their story, pick their brain, maybe bring them to their house, and invite them to dinner so that they can meet the family and talk. But something changed her mind, and she felt that she just needed to give the money and save the person's dignity and give them food and go on her way with some peace. And so she ended up just doing that, and that's something I learned a valuable lesson from that about, yeah, that's showing guardianship. You're guarding your brother. You're being I guess, a caretaker for the homeless person or for anyone that you have to show empathy towards. You make that choice to be their guardian, to guard their dignity, to not shame them, not point it out to other people. Just do it quietly, and your reward will be in heaven. And you'll be, in a way, like Japheth and Shem, taking that extra effort to walk in their steps, to search it out like a forensic scientist or like a detective, to map out their path of travel very carefully so you can understand them. And then you can show empathy towards them. And then you can cover up their shame. Anyway, you may agree with me, you may not. If But this is something that I personally got out of this story in my studies. And like I said, I was asking God to show me himself, and he kind of did, through his people. I got to see God through empathizing with his chosen ones. Um, and in this story, it was Noah. And it makes a big difference in how I treat people now. People who come to me for help. Um, Anyway, that's the pebble for the day. Shalom.